Grand Hood Rising Kings and Queens, Trap Witch here in Atlanta, Georgia, coming to bring you a end of year reading for 2019. 2019 has been a year. I've taken a break from my moon readings. For those of you who have been loyal supporters for a long time, I'm transitioning my career. I'm not focusing so much on being emphasized as a reader per se. I've been doing some really intense events, trying to expand my practices and really stretch myself as a practitioner over the past few months. So I've been taking an absence here on YouTube just so I can focus on the next steps of everything. So for those of you who know me, I am the Trap Witch on Instagram. You can follow me there, TheTrapWitch. I am an intuitive healer, shadow worker. I consider myself a bridge. I help people tap into their God-given ashe and tools so they are able to hear their source energy and follow their intuition, because I believe the spiritual journey is a number of choices, and the better we get at trusting ourselves and hearing source and making choices along our journey, the more we come into our God-given purpose and our mission here. And so with that being said, if you feel compelled to work with me after watching this reading, reach out to me, www.thetrapwitch.com. You can book the session through there. You can secure the session and we can start working one-on-one. I mentor, I do coaching. Even if you just want to do a one here and there session just for accountability, confirmation, and check-in, I welcome you to my couch, to my doors for that. For those of you who also don't know, I am a practitioner of the Afro-Cuban religion of Santeria. I am a daughter of Ochun and Chongo. I am initiated. I am still very much learning a lot of the traditional aspects. It's going to be a lifelong journey, but I have taken that step. For those of you who are also interested in, African traditional religion and practices, and needing guidance with that or input on what your next steps could be on your journey, I don't mind assisting with that as well. And I look forward to connecting with you on that. So 2019 has been a year. 2019 was really a year of making sure that we are really getting on track with course correcting and healing ourselves. And I don't say this to scare you, but 2019, if you have not been on top of your shit and starting to course correct and do your deep-rooted healing and course correcting your trauma, it's not going to be a pretty year in 2020. 2020, Spirit is playing no games with us. We are not going to be able to spiritually bypass. I know myself, I've been checked a few times. I've had a few tests this year that I was caught off guard, and it's just making sure we stay as accountable as possible to be the best versions of ourselves, to serve ourselves as well as to serve our fellow brother and sister while we are here. So one thing I emphasized on my page today is knowing that we are supported, and sometimes Source and God allows us to be supported through other people who are more connected than you might feel at this time if you are clouded by your emotions or clouded by things that you feel like you can't make the best decision first on your own. So like I said, myself, that's what I love to help people to do. And this year, going into 2020, I feel like we're coming to the end of a decade, and I wanted to make sure that before this decade is done, I left you guys with a bit of my presence on YouTube and just making sure that I hadn't, checked all the way out. One thing though is that, next year, I went to a seance recently in my community, and Next year is really going to be about being passion driven. Next year, we are not going to be able to do a lot of things just for the sake of money. Doing something for the sake of money is just not going to cut it. We are going to be telling a lot of people no. We're just going to have to say a lot of no's next year. And it's not that we're not good-hearted people, but good-hearted people often have to say no as well when they know what they can and cannot take on, what suits their integrity and what does not. So what I'm going to do, because I don't want to ramble on too much, is I'm going to pull some cards and I'm going to see what Spirit says about what we should be knowing about coming to the end of a decade, going into 2020. What is it that we need to be mindful of in order to be in alignment with our highest good? I encourage you to take notes. I always appreciate when people tag me in their notes on Instagram, and anything that touched you and moved you, please do share it with me, share it with your audience, share it with somebody, because we never know who might need it at what time. Yes, so with that being said, here we go. And I'm gonna use my good old New Orleans voodoo deck. And I just have to say, you know, big up the ancestors, man. Like, and I got Ermias on my shirt, I got Nipsey on my shirt, the Ascended Master. It's really important, you know, even for me, and just saying to anyone watching, and, you know, people of color, and not even just people of color, you know, all people, tapping into the Ascended Masters that have gone on and have work that needs to be continued. Don't be afraid to give them veneration and ask them to work and surround you and protect you. You know, for me, Nipsey Hussle's passing greatly affected me. Bob Marley's an Ascended Master that's gone on that I feel strongly. You know, Harriet Tubman's one that resonates with me deeply. And so a lot of these Ascended Masters now, they have work that needs to be continued. And in the past few months, especially here, I'm in the South, I'm in Atlanta, it's a reminder that we have to understand a lot of these people in history as well fought, for example, in the Underground Railroad, and we have the privilege of being overground now. And what are we doing with those privileges? What are we doing with that power that we've been given? Because at times it makes no sense to have revolution without evolution. And 2020 is going to be a year where a lot of us are being required to step up. I know myself as someone who's stepping up as an elder in my community, as a leader in my community. I have a job to fulfill, because I go on to be an ancestor, and we want to leave behind legacy, and we actually too want to be venerated in our living life. We don't want to wait until people leave us before we venerate them and really understand their mission. So if you're someone who knows you have a mission that needs to be venerated, really go hard in 2020 for what you're about and what your mission is, because celebration has to happen before and beyond the grave. And there's been a lot of death this year. There's going to continue to be a lot of death next year. We are in a transition of a paradigm. The earth is purging. Mother Nature's fucking mad at us. The earth is being destroyed, and we have to understand that that's with reason, because a new paradigm is coming through. So whatever you want our children to inherit coming forth, you have to fight for that. You have to stand for that. And if you don't stand for that, you will fall for that. And so you'll fall for what you don't stand for. And I just feel like a really strong emphasis to say that tonight. And so pulling from the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot, and we'll see what it says. I'll complement it with a few angel cards, whatever have you, and see what it is that wants to come through for the collective at this time as we're ending a decade. Spirit, I call you in on behalf of the collective. I ask the highest good of all those involved with harm to none. I ask for clarity. I ask for clear perception. I ask that Egwa to open the roads to clear, precise messages at this time. What is it subconsciously below the surface, beyond the veil, that can facilitate in the collective's highest good? Allow us to overcome What are you inviting us to at this time in our purpose and our missions here to face within ourselves so that we're not spiritually bypassing, so we are acknowledging, taking accountability for our actions, our emotions, our mental health, for our humanity and our collective around us. Please allow my ancestors, my Egun, my Orisha, archangels of benevolence, and any other power of benevolence only that wishes to assist me in this reading at this time during this, Sagittarius season of 2019, ending a decade, going into 2020. What is it that you want us to know at this time? What is a focus? What is a message that we are definitely needing to carry into 2020 and a new decade? Whew, okay. They knocked cards right out my hand. I usually pull 5 cards. Okay. Oh. That might have dropped me a few more than that. Huh. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Counselor. You are a natural counselor, and many people benefit from your guidance and reassurance. Next to Athena, inner wisdom. You know what to do. Trust inner wisdom and take appropriate action without delay. And in between there, we had child innocence reverse. Okay. A lot of cards came up and fell out, but I want to start with this. Every last one of us has wisdom that we can tap into. We are our own best friends. We at times underestimate how often we have to continually tap in to new parts of ourselves, to new information. And even at times when we don't feel like necessarily we can do that on our own, there are people who can teach us to tap into that higher power within ourselves, because we are all born. From the time we are in the womb, we are wired and we are blueprinted for whatever it is that we are destined to here. There are parts of your wisdom that you have yet to explore. You've really not even, one day I was sitting with my padrino and he said the average human, we only ever tap into about 6%, I think it was like 6% of our brain. And he was saying how Albert Einstein had a little bit more than that, but as humans, the average human doesn't access the knowledge and the innate wisdom that they have accessibility to. And so Spirit is saying to us that what would happen if you continue to nurture that innate wisdom that you have within? What if all it takes is sitting down, especially, frustration. You have to understand this. Life is always going to be, from day in, day out, a choice between letting stuff frustrate us and tapping into a higher level of love. So many of us, we focus on where we are weak, but in our weaknesses, there are answers. Because whatever we feel weak in, there is the potential to strengthen that if we feel that we have the ability, that we've been wired already to always tap into more. If we can continue to nurture ourselves and treat ourselves almost like a child at times. You know, when we are kids, we get frustrated. Do you remember the first time you tried to ride a bike, or the first time you tried to tie your shoe, or the first time you tried to cook, or the first time you tried to do anything? A lot of times when we have our firsts, we don't necessarily excel. And just because you do something and it's your first time, and you might not do it to the best of your ability, that does not mean that you are powerless. It does not mean that you don't obtain the power. But sometimes failure is innovation. Sometimes that's going back to the drawing board. Sometimes that means getting up and trying again. I remember myself when I was a kid, I went to karate and I sucked at karate. I've always been a big, strong girl, but my mind was not strong. My mind was not strong in a way because I used to get very frustrated with myself and very self-defeated. I remember, you know, that time when you go and you have to break the board. A bitch couldn't break the board. You know, I remember the one time we had to start, I think I was like maybe 6 years old, and we had to start off in grappling on the floor, and then we had to move into a floor exercise and spar. And I remember this girl, I think her name was Lana. And although I was a big girl, Lana was a big girl too. And I remember losing to Lana and feeling like, you know, she's putting me in a chokehold and I'm powerless. Think about this. Wasn't that I was powerless, but maybe I just hadn't tapped into that inner confidence, that inner wisdom, that inner truth, that just because you failed this time and Lana kicked your ass a little bit and she made you feel a little bit defeated, doesn't make you a fucking loser. A lot of times in life we feel like fucking losers because the first time at love we fail, or the first time at attempting something we sucked. Our first attempts don't make us losers. And that's the thing. A lot of us, we look at ourselves on a very superficial level. We have to understand that we are sometimes just barely scratching the surface. Sometimes we are barely scratching the surface. If I'm correct, like in psychology they'll show you like the iceberg theory, where how like people have levels of themselves, and sometimes people in life, they only tap the tip of the iceberg. But think about the iceberg, right? The top of the iceberg might seem so minute and so small. But if we recall, Titanic found out different, because the size and the magnitude of the iceberg underneath was massive, and that's what they say took Titanic down. So understand this. You can't get caught up sometimes at looking at yourself so superficially and victimizing yourself on a superficial level, because sometimes you are looking at yourself at just the top of the iceberg. You have weight and you have magnitude way below the surface. You understand me? Sometimes we have to understand that our weight and our magnitude and our expansiveness and our colossalness, we are not going to see it unless we are willing to go deeper and go beneath the surface. So many times we don't realize that over life, there's times where we're impulsive about shit. We don't move with the best logic. We operate in our feelings versus really being centered and mindful and conscious. And sometimes as we're going through that, right, it's because we miss the fine details of certain things. And just because, you know, the devil's in the details and you miss some details in a past experience doesn't mean that you're not going to see them in future experiences. But you have to learn to hold counsel with yourself. Think about after Titanic sunk. I'm quite sure they had some fucking meetings after that, and they figured out, you know what? Maybe we thought we were smart about the way that we went about things, and maybe we not need to do that shit different. Maybe we need to do that shit now different. And it's not that the things that they did weren't good ideas, or they weren't, they shouldn't have been filled with hope and certain things. But life happens, and sometimes in the process of learning, what has to take a loss is your ego. What has to take a loss is your pride. Look, there was a lot of life lost in Titanic, right? There was a lot of life lost. What if the people who built that voyage and built that mission decided not to take a loss of pride and ego, whatever? Then we wouldn't have a lot of different mechanics and safety issues and X, Y, and Z that is put in place now to make other people's journeys and how we deal with journeys of that nature differently. You have to understand that, again, you have so much divine wisdom. We have been put on this earth not to be mediocre. We are put on this earth to be massive beings. Each one of us deserves to live a massive life and a massive existence. But if you don't desire to be your own best friend, to be your counsel, and every time it's time for you to start a new chapter or dig deeper or go beyond to get to that real power, if you don't have that desire and you just want to go through life impulsively, jumping from one thing to the next, you're actually in the long run going to take more losses than wins. I really feel that going into 2020, a lot of the ways that we did things before, if it was, again, operating out of our feelings, operating out of our lower self, operating out of what people around us and what society tells us, if it is not getting deep down to within you and what your inner knowing and what your inner wisdom tells you, that you're going to be in some problems. Let's pull a clarity card. Let's see. What do you need to pull on top of wisdom? Exercise your vibes. Exercise your vibes, okay? Let me tell you something. If we were to follow, let me tell you something, like, advice in life is not one size fits all. Just like with exercise, right? Everybody has different body type. So not all people respond to the same exercises. Not all people respond to the same type of diet. Everybody is built differently. So in order for us to tap into our wisdom, all of us at times are going to have to exercise tapping into that differently. I myself don't read. As much as I fucking write, as much knowledge as I share, I don't read books front to back. I don't have the attention span for it. I use books to divine. I might watch a documentary here and there, but I'm very selective of my inputs because I don't have a very long attention span. And I can't process loads of information at one time. But what I can tell you is that in the resources that Spirit guides me to and the things that I am inclined to reach to, I am divinely guided to those things. And in being guided to those things, a lot of what is already within here starts to connect. There's people, and I don't say this arrogantly, that they think that I've studied so much over time, and I haven't. I feel like I'm very claircognizant, and a lot of us do have this knowing without knowing. But the truth is, we don't trust our knowing. We don't trust our deep knowing. We don't trust at getting to the depths of that intuition and the depths of that knowing. So many of us neglect how much that knowing of the strengths that you have and you obtain on a deeper level, on a spiritual level, is going to take you to different new places next year. You know, and a lot of times we'll get frustrated when we get worked up about a lot of things, but we don't realize that a lot of us are bigger than our own struggles. And I don't like to feed into the word struggle anymore. I like to say that we slowly succeed. And what defines if you slowly exceed over the obstacles, and I'm not using the word obstacle so much anymore either, we have to ask ourselves, when certain things come in our road in life, what is it inviting us to? What are certain things in life inviting you to within yourself, to go deeper within yourself, exercise parts of yourself that you are yet to tap into? And what I love about the Exercise Your Vibes card that came up is that sometimes you don't know your capability and what your body's capable of, right? Until you dig deep. And next year, I feel, is a year that we have to dig deeper. Yeah, okay, you've tried some moves over time, and yes, they've worked. But what if you dig a little bit deeper? What if you connect deep down to your muscle? And when I talk about your muscle in this instance, I mean the mind. The mind is the most powerful muscle in your fucking human body. And they say if you put your mind to anything, you are able to manifest, to overcome, and to be so great. So how much of your wisdom are you going to access next year by taking deeper? A lot of things that people have been doing to wing it, this shit ain't gonna work. This shit is not gonna work, especially if people have been spiritually bypassing and you've not been digging deeper within the spiritual realm. People who have been trying to put on superficial fronts, faking it a little too much, it's not going to be good. Their cards are going to be called. You know, people also too who have been, I think at times, fronting on a lot of things as well. If people have been fronting on themselves and have been fronting on other people, the masks are going to get pulled. The curtain, you know, the shady shit that's going on behind the curtain is going to be pulled up and people are going to be caught. And some people are going to be caught in the spotlight. And it might be embarrassing. But if we are just tapping into the very superficial layers and not caring about the rest, it's going to be problematic. It's going to rock your boat. It's going to cause a lot of disasters. A lot of people who've been putting on a front, right? Let's say, for example, say somebody's like putting on a front and trying to take people on a journey, like, you know, the captain, and they're not being the best captain they can be, just like, you know, the Captain Titanic. That person and the people that they're trying to take with them, they're going to be overturned and they're going to be fighting. They're going to be fighting for their life, and they're going to be fighting for things that could have been avoidable. So what I'm going to tell you to do is be smart. And one of the smartest things you can do is, if things feel too superficial, especially with some people maybe that you follow or you're looking to counsel for, if it feels real superficial and it feels very surface, and it feels like it's like, oh, come just get on this extravagant boat with me and da-da-da-da-da, be mindful. Be mindful, because again, you don't want to be following people that have a lot of pride and have a lot of ego and have a lot of arrogance. And before you know it, you're in the middle of the ocean and all of you guys are sinking and looking for the lifeboats and you're stranded. You don't want to make a lot of moves with people that are impulsive and superficial, and like that impulsive nature next year, It's not going to serve us. It's not going to serve a lot of us. A lot of next year is about tapping into the spirituality of ourselves. A lot of prayer, a lot of meditation. And even when I say prayer, like prayer is in every moment too, putting God in every moment. And when I say putting God and putting source in every moment, like connecting to your highest self and to the highest energy of source in the choices that you make. Next year, you got to hold counsel with source, and you got to hold counsel with God within you, and make sure the people that you are communing with are as well. Things that are being led by the superficial ego are going to leave you really victimized. And we don't want that. We don't want that at all. And I'm sorry, y'all, I didn't end up showing y'all all the cards and they're all over the place. I don't really care. Like I told you, I'm getting away from being that reader that just shows all the, like, just listen, you know, we don't need to sometimes see all the cards to hear the message. You know, so, you know, not connecting to God and keeping source and things next year is going to take away from a lot of pleasure. If you want love, if you want a good life, you want all the things that you want, pray now so you can have the pleasure later. Because those who are seeking pleasure in the moment without taking the moment to pray on it, you're going to get fucked up. There's a, you know, or there's a chance that you're going to have to go back and course correct things again. So do it smart. And hopefully do it better this time so you don't have to be constantly course correcting. You know, so you don't have to constantly course correct. You know, next year we have to have a lot of confidence in ourselves. And it's not loud and it's not boisterous and it's not all of that. It's not like machismo energy next year. Like 2020 is going to be a lot of silent confidence. And people who really include God within themselves and source within themselves and going to those deeper layers and being expansive and allowing God to expand them, it's going to be good. God and source is that quiet inner confidence you need to tap in to expansion. But those who are expanded by ego, those who are expanded by arrogance, the balloon's going to be popped. It's going to deflate. Spirit's going to be going around going bloop, 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 pop, 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 pop. Sorry to burst your bubble. Sorry. The expansiveness that we need to be and the vastness that we need to be, it's deep, it's below the surface, and it's solid. It's, again, it's not showboating. Showboating, I keep saying, showboating next year is going to get a lot of us fucked up. Quiet inner confidence, inner knowing of self, knowing how God is connected. Learning how to exercise those vibes, cool. Dry the boat next year, but no showboating. Learn to stick. Ooh, I said that at 3333. The Ascended Master said, Ashe. I said that exactly. Learn to dry the boat and allow Spirit to be your co-captain and help you maneuver. But don't get fucking caught showboating next year and you end up face down, ass up in a pile of your own emotions because you done overturned. You wiser than that. You're so much wiser than that. You know what I'm saying? And you have more than enough to get you to the next destination of where you need to go. But again, your vastness and larger than lifeness to overcome things, It's not going to come being reckless. It's not coming through showboating or ego. It's quiet inner confidence, tapping into that inner voice of God. You know what I'm saying? Because God ain't got to be loud. God ain't got to be loud. Sometimes you miss God because you're waiting for God to be loud. And so really quiet yourself in moments next year where you can really listen and you can really hear and you can really say, okay, cool, I hear you. Even if I silence the voice of outside voices and even my inner critic, and I can go deeper. I go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And you know, it's funny because I see the ocean, and you know, the deeper you go in the bottom of the ocean, the more quiet it gets. The calmer it gets. You know how quiet it is on and still a lot of times it is on the ocean floor? Imagine how much you can hear yourself the deeper you go. How much wisdom you can tap into. Even, you know, going deeper beyond surface emotions as well. You know, someone today, they might be sad about something. So beyond even, I'm sad. Well, why are you sad? Let's go deep. Let's go deep below the surface. Let's get to the bottom of this. You have the answers. All of us have the answers for all the weaknesses that we feel. But we got to take that moment to understand that, and understand we can nurture ourselves back to a place of innocence. Before you know it, and weaknesses become strengths. But you got to take your time. You ain't got to worry about being so expansive from a place of, oh, I just can't wait to be so big and get there. Nah. Slow down. Slow down. No showboating. No showboating. And let's see something. Got my computer over here, so we'll see something. Showboating definition for y'all who don't know. The action or practice of showing off. You know, and I just say that because so many of us are going into 2020 and we're like, 2020 is our year. Don't focus on wanting to get to things so we can show off and prove it. Because sometimes we're trying to show off to ourselves and focusing on gaining instead of focusing on gaining the wisdom. It is so much better to be somebody within yourself that you can depend on, that has the knowledge, has the wisdom, than being worried about just being able to show off. That's what a lot of people like to do anyway. They just want to get to the place that they want to get to in life so they can feel better about themselves on a superficial level and show off. And that's why so many people fake it. They fake it to even make themselves feel better. You know how many people fake shit to make themselves feel better? I've done it before. I've done it before. So I can talk about it. I can talk about it, okay? You know, so. Well, I feel good. I feel good with that right there. I think, let's pull an inner child card to close. Let's pull an inner child card to close. And I will read that to you and I'll show you the card for that. So it's going to be the inner child cards of Fairy Tarot. So it's from this, a Fairy Tale Tarot. Spirit, what do we need to know to close this? What do we need to know to close this message? Close this message out. What do they need to know going into 2020? 2020. 2020. 2020. 2020. Going into 2020. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is that? Okay, that feels good there. 2020. What we need to know. Snow White. Okay, this is gonna be a long ass card because it's from the majors, one of them in here. Okay, Snow White. Let's see what they're talking about with Snow White. It's funny, right? Because immediately when I'm thinking about Snow White was the story where the evil stepmama, whatever the evil queen, had mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of them all? That's immediately what came to me when I heard that. So Snow White on page 77. 77, that's Yemaya's number. I was talking about all this water and boats and shit. Yemaya, the mother of all. All right, here we go. Hidden within the fairy tale of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a major life lesson concerning service to humanity and the utilization of wise discrimination. Just before Snow White is born, her mother is sewing and pricks herself with a needle. As the blood flows, she wishes for a child with lips as red as blood, skin as white as snow, and hair as black as ebony. Snow White soon comes into the world, but her mother dies during the birth. Snow White's stepmother is a beautiful but wicked, vain, and jealous woman. When she asks the magic mirror symbolizing the search for perfect beauty, an aspect of the sign Virgo which rules this card, who is the fairest in the land, the mirror replies, Snow White. The queen is so angry, and then she orders a huntsman to kill Snow White and bring back her head as proof of the deed. The huntsman, representing humanity, mortality, and humility, has compassion for the young girl, lets her go, and brings back the heart of a young animal for the stepmother. Snow White, at 7 years of age, is alone in the forest, seeking shelter and protection. She's on a symbolic wisdom pilgrimage. Let me repeat that real quick, because my mouth sometimes won't be working, okay? She is on a symbolic wisdom pilgrimage. She finds a small cottage with 7 beds and 7 bowls. The number 7 signifying a major spiritual transition. When the dwarves find her after working all day in the diamond mine, she's fast asleep in one of their beds. In the original version of this story, the dwarves are gnomes. The gnomes represent earthly wisdom, the inner light shining from within the depths of our planet. Snow White begins to grow into her higher wisdom by taking care of the gnomes, cleaning their house, and making meals for them. The wicked queen finds out that Snow White is still alive by asking the magic mirror again, who is the fairest in the land. Over many years, the stepmother tries to kill Snow White. Hold on. She tries to kill Snow White 3 more times. The first time disguised as a merchant selling lace, the queen gives some material to Snow White, who pulls it too tight around her waist. She faints due to restriction of her breathing spirit and is found by the gnomes, who revive her. In the second encounter, the stepmother transforms herself into a woman selling combs. Snow White is tricked again and buys one, poisoning her head and scalp, ego identity. The gnomes rescue her once again. In the third experience, the stepmother changes herself into an old woman selling apples, and then she has secretly poisoned. Snow White, still lacking in wise discrimination, takes a bite of the poisoned apple and appears to fall dead. Actually, she falls into a deep coma from when the gnomes cannot revive her. The earthly wisdom has run its course, and Snow White is ready for her final initiation. I love where this is going, because they're like, their earthly wisdom is done. All that superficial shit that she kept falling for, the shit is over, okay? It's over. So she cannot stay in the cottage, and in parentheses, they have darkness forever. So the gnomes place her in a glass coffin where the light streaming through the forest can illuminate her body, heart, and soul. She needs to come into the light. Her inner service, dutiful work for the gnomes, cleaning, nurturing others, being humble, has completed. The prince comes, he picks her up, takes her into his horse, and he carries her the piece of poison apple He picks her up, takes her to his horse, and as he carries her, the piece of poison apple is dislodged from her throat. This is a symbolic clearing of the throat chakra and a re-empowerment of Snow White's primal wisdom. United with her animus, the prince, she has become crowned 7th chakra in wholeness and light. Traditionally, this card in the major arcana is known as the Hermit and is often portrayed as a wise old man or woman crone. Through the pilgrimage and odyssey of Snow White, we learn about becoming whole with all aspects of soul and life and personality life are fused and integrated. Living in an isolated or separate state will not bring happiness and contentment. The active work we call to do in life is only partially physical, emotional, and mental. There is also soul work, our service to humanity, the opportunity and challenge to be a light to the world. When this card appears in your reading, you are ready to receive the buried treasures of your own wisdom that dwell in the deep caverns of your ancestral past. You hear that? Child, what was I talking about? Didn't I talk about going below the surface, going deeper, tapping into your ancestral past, going deeper into that wisdom, talking bitches on it? Let me repeat this to you, okay? When this card appears in your reading, you are ready to receive the buried treasure of your own wisdom that dwell deep in the caverns of your ancestral past. Just as the 7 dwarves assist Snow White by reviving her from the wicked perils of transformation and showering her with gems from the cave mines, you are assisted by your spiritual helpers and guides. This is a card of service and deep reflection. As you open your own heart and soul to the treasures of your own destiny, you will find many new opportunities to illuminate and brighten the world around you. So the traditional tarot archetype is the Hermit and the zodiac ruler is the Virgo. That's the card. Look, what I loved about there is that they said the earthly wisdom has served you right now. A lot of us, look, going into 2020, just earthly wisdom, the superficial, all that shit barely scratching the surface, is not going to cut it. We got to go deeper. And I told you, did I not tell you about the ancestors? You have spiritual guides and ancestors and people that want to continue the wisdom in your family, and whether it be the Orishas, whether it be the Ego. But remember, this says no ego identity. So with that being said, how do you tap into this deep ancestral wisdom and knowing within yourself? That's really about getting to the gems. It's not about your ego. It's not about earthly wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about earthly wisdom. So, they said what they said. Their message confirmed my message. It's time to go deeper. There's layers to us. There's layers to the wisdom, and we are forever going to be going deep down into them caverns and get into the jewels, into the gems, and digging deeper. And that means we're going to have to constantly chip away layers of superficialness over and over and over and over and over again, every fucking chapter. Next year, put your spirit first. Put spirit first. I don't care what it seems like out there that feels like they might know it all. Let me tell you something. One thing I'm realizing is that, again, a lot of people are really good at making it look like they got earthly wisdom. Oh, let me get you this, whatever, the booming business. Like, there's a lot of gimmicks of earthly wisdom to make you feel like you have arrived at something. But if you have to rob yourself of tapping in and digging deeper ancestrally into that wisdom innately that you've been born with and are destined to have, and you compromise that, focusing too much on that other shit, you're gonna lose. You're gonna hold yourself up. A lot of times people be knowing. They don't tap into this. They don't tap into this. They listen to these ideas of earthly wisdom and like, okay, that's what I gotta do. That's what I gotta do to appear like, okay. And you rob yourself. Sometimes we're studying the shit that we're not supposed to be studying and trying to get to the place where we're not supposed to go because we just want to showboat and we just want to have to look like we have it together on an earthly plane, and before you know it, you're victimized again in some sort of situation. So, you know, this is what I leave you with. So I hope that sits well with some of you guys. If it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate. So, you know, but if you are interested in working with me, I do teach people to tap into their ancestral wisdom. You know, and you have to remember the ancestors are you and you are the ancestors, and getting to that is getting within yourself. So thank you so much for sitting with me today. I hope this message serves you well going into 2020. It's about to be real. I'm so excited. I'm sending you lots of love, prosperity, and when I say prosperity, I mean for you to put your worth where it matters. When you know what matters in life, it's easy to get to your worth, and it's easy to get what you're worth. So, Ashe. God bless you all, and I hope you have a beautiful December and a very happy New Year.